Hi, lovely to see you. Welcome to this reflection for today. I hope you've had a lovely week and I hope you're looking forward to whatever the weekend brings. Now, a week or so ago, I put together a reflection called Where is Your Treasure? Really just encouraging us to reflect on what the last 3 months or so have taught us about where our treasure really lies in life, rather than where the world tells us it should be or where we've been fooled into thinking it was. And today I'd like to think about the extent to which, if we're really ready to develop the habit, we can find those treasures all around us in the most tiny things. I've had a number of conversations actually over the last few days, which has got me thinking about this subject, and they've focused on the same thing, and that is the way in which people are discovering blessings in small things, or at least becoming re-aware of how we're blessed by things that maybe a few months ago we might just have totally taken for granted. And we've been forced to do it, haven't we? So many of us have been forced to do it. For many of us, our lives have been in some way pared back over recent months. We've been forced, whether we like it or not, into a life of greater simplicity. I'm not saying that they've necessarily been easier times, but I think for many of us, they have been simplified. We've been pared back to a sparser rhythm, if you like, in our lives. And one of the results that I've noticed of this paring back is the way in which many of us have been open to see and to recognise and to give thanks for the small things that we wouldn't even have given a thought to before. So, for example, in conversations over the last few days, I've heard people give thanks for getting a haircut, meeting children for a picnic, going for a walk with a friend, visiting a shop, a game of golf, and very importantly, a slice of cake from the local cafe. I'll leave you to decide which of those you think are mine. At least one of them is. Now, these things haven't suddenly become more of a blessing than they were before. But I think what's changed is our ability, or at least our openness, to recognise these blessings for what they are. And that's exactly that, blessings. St. Paul said in his letter to the Thessalonians, one of the church communities that he created and supported and loved, he said to them, give thanks in all circumstances. And he said something very similar to the community in Philippi. He said, I've learnt to be content in every situation. And I think what Paul's saying is that he wanted his communities to develop a culture of thankfulness, in which all things and in all situations we find things to be thankful for. A culture of seeing the many blessings that might otherwise be taken for granted and for explicitly giving thanks for them. Claire, our lovely church warden, reflected a little bit in her reflection last week on Paul's invitation to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. And one of the ways we allow our minds, our way of seeing and being in the world, to be transformed is just to deliberately practice the ways of acting and thinking that we want to turn into habits. In other words, if we want to be a thankful people who give thanks in all circumstances, then the first step is to stop and to give thanks. There's a really wonderful quote by the American theologian Richard Rohr, who said this: We do not think ourselves into new ways of living. We live ourselves into new ways of thinking. And I really think that's wonderful. Let me say it again. We do not think ourselves into new ways of living. We live ourselves into new ways of thinking. So I suppose my simple question for us today that I offer to you to reflect on is, where are the tiny treasures in your life right now? The little things that you can pause and be thankful for? And perhaps more importantly, what will we do to enable us to continue to recognise these tiny treasures in our lives, even when we might be tempted to slip back into taking those tiny treasures for granted? So I'll leave that question with you to ponder over the weekend. Please do have a wonderful and blessed and thankful weekend. I pray you're able to see and to recognise the tiny treasures in your life. And I really look forward to seeing you soon. See you for now. Bye-bye.